Thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast, and we've been following along with Pastor Mike's in-depth teaching through the book of Matthew. In part 2, we'll discover that even the wind and the waves obeyed Jesus, and the disciples were left marveling, who can this be? Though they had followed him, they didn't fully know him. Could the same be true of us? Sometimes it's not in the comfort of the crowd, but in the chaos of the storm that we come to truly know who Jesus is. Let's dive back in with Pastor Mike as he picks up at chapter 8, verse 26.
Well, here, why are you fearful, O you of little faith? Then he, Jesus, arose and this is one of my favorite things, by the way. He rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. This scene is just fun, right? It is a crazy storm, waves on waves. I mean, waves like Peter, James, and John have never seen on the Sea of Galilee, right? Maybe there's an earthquake, there's things happening, right? All kinds of craziness. Jesus just stands up and he tells the sea to be muzzled. Now, in the common vernacular, right? It would be, shut up. Now, I don't know if you got a theology where Jesus can't say shut up. But I guess to the winds and the waves he can. So that's just the way it is. He tells the sea and the storm to be muzzled. Literally, to shut its mouth. Just shut it. This is Jesus. That's kind of fun, right? And immediately it says that the sea and the storm go calm. You imagine those last drops hitting the ground, hitting the water. And the disciples looking around at each other like, what in the world was that? What just happened, right? And she's like, what? I told you. I told you. We're going to get there, no problem, right? Meanwhile, the disciples are bailing water so they can get the boat to the other side, right? And the men marveled, saying in verse 27, who can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him? Which is an indication that they had been following him without knowing who he is. Even disciples can follow Jesus without knowing him, right? The reason for storms is because you will learn more about who he is in the middle of the storm than you would have learned in the middle of the crowd. And he's got to get disciples away into things like this so they can begin to realize, I don't know as much about God as I thought I did. Who can this be that even the winds and the sea obey him? Now, verse 28, right on the heels, right? This is beautiful. When the disciples are still drip drying, they get down to the southeastern corner of the Sea of Galilee. When he had come to the other side, to the country of the Gergesenes, the Decapolis region, there met him 2 demon-possessed men. Now, Matthew tells us there's 2 of them. Mark and Luke only record 1. Apparently, 1 speaks. The other guy's just kind of following the lead of the head. There's a head demon-possessed man, and then there's a following demon-possessed man. And the one that we kind of hear from is the leader of the 2. But there's 2 guys here. And they're coming out of the tombs, which apparently is where they were living, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. Now, in your mind, what time of day is it? As you see this scene, what time of day is it? I've never done this before. This is new for me. Alfred Edersheim goes through a fairly detailed explanation as to why he believes that when they show up on the shore, it's nighttime. This is spooky time. Right? This is demon time. This is when things can be the scariest time. They have just come out of a dramatic storm. They're already trying to get their bearings as life and stuff, kind of thing, right? Their head's still spinning. Now it's dark. They're like, oh, good. We're on land. Now we can rest. And out of the hills, out from the tombs that would be there along the cliff in this particular region, there were kind of open open tombs where they would bury bodies. Comes a screaming voice. Now listen, they don't know where the voice is coming from because it's dark. Imagine the voice, the men, the demon possession, running out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. People didn't engage with these guys. They avoided them. Even in daylight, they avoided them. And suddenly, they cried out. They're saying, as they're running, they cried out saying, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, you Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now, I wish I had a voice. I got a dumb voice, right? It's a squeaky voice. If I get loud, I go like higher pitch. Aiden makes fun of me all the time. If I'm like at a wrestling tournament, it's like a chihuahua over there in the corner, right? Or, would you just stop? Would you just stop? Right? The Lord has his ways of keeping us all very humble. My voice, you got your own things. Right? These guys are screaming, but it's a low-pitched growl. I can't even, I want to try. Imagine Ken Graves with a couple demons. What have we to do with you, Jesus? Look, you Son of God. That's very interesting. Both lessons now coming together. Who can this be? The demons answer the question. The demons are actually more aware who Jesus is than the disciples are. Right? Because they see something that man does not see. They can see into the spiritual reality. They can see into the more significant reality. We get put out by crowds. We get put out by attentions and externals, and we get put out by these kinds of things and distracted by them. The demons don't much care about any of that stuff. Right? They're not trying to dress up a body before they kill it. They just want it to die one way or the other. They don't care how it happens. Right? And Jesus, they recognize. Now, their question to Jesus is this: have you come here to torment us before the time? The thing they're primarily concerned about, that Jesus is there, is that they're going to be sent away into the abyss and have to go into their everlasting judgment. And apparently they're having too much fun doing whatever they're doing right now, right? Inhabiting people and or pigs as it goes along. They're not ready to be judged. And so they don't want to be tormented before their time. Now, it says here in Matthew, now a good way off from them, there was a herd of many swine feeding. Now, please do not, poor pigs, right? If you're thinking poor pigs, you need to go hang out with a few. Right? There's nothing about it. There's nothing sad about a dead pig, right? Just probably deserve to die anyway, right? And in the land of Judea, it shouldn't have been there to begin with. The Jews weren't allowed to keep pigs, right? So they're actually functioning outside of the law, right? So there's a herd of many swine. I think Mark tells us that there's 2,000 of them. So that's a good herd of swine, by the way. 2,000 swine is significant money. And the demons begged him, saying in verse 31, if you cast us out, rather than sending us into the abyss, rather than chaining us up in Tartarus, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. Now, this begs a question that I'm not going to answer for you, but just make an observation. Spiritual warfare and demonic activity is real. It is real. There's far more to life than just natural occurrences. There are demonic activities, oppressions, suppressions, involvements, and these kinds of things. And I don't care how many movies they make to mock it, to ridicule it, or to desensitize us to the significance of it. Right? It's Halloween season. You can't watch a football game without getting a commercial about some horror movie. Right? Because it wants to desensitize us to fear, to fright, to these kinds of things that are actually, in some ways, very eternal. It should be frightening. We should, in some ways, want to avoid them. Right? So here, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. Now watch. It says in verse 32 that he said to them, in Matthew's account, this is beautiful, by the way, because it's the only word he utters from verses 28 down to 34. Like the whole time, Jesus is fairly quiet. Now, we know from the other accounts that he is having a dialogue. I believe, by the way, he's trying to dialogue with the man. The demons keep interrupting. He's not talking to demons, right? If you're going to cast out a demon, you don't talk to the demon to try to figure out how to cast out the demon, right? And the idea that you need to figure out what the demon's name is before you can cast it out is nonsense. That's actually Jewish exorcist practices, right? That's nonsense, because if the demon is of the order of Satan and Satan is the father of lies, you ask him his name, he's going to give you the wrong one. I'm the demon of alcoholism. Probably not, but that gives you a nice excuse now, doesn't it? Don't ask his name. Just tell him to shut up and get out, right? Go, Jesus says. Go. Now listen, this is on his authority. This is on Jesus' authority. Do not assume authority you do not have. The 7 sons of Sceva tried this with another demon-possessed situation and got thoroughly trounced. Before the match was over, they were running out naked, bleeding, screaming, hollering. They got beat up by one guy with demons. Don't assume that you can do this in your own, because you can't. But in Christ's authority, you can do it. Actually, he can do it. You just stay behind him. Jesus says, go. So when they had come out, they went out into the herd of swine, and look, and suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea and perished in the water. This was the intention of the demons when they first came into the men years ago. Satan comes only, tells us in John 10, only, his only reasons for coming, to steal, to kill, and to destroy. Somehow or another, when it's involving humans, there's a will that they can't supersede. Demons do not have the ability to completely supersede the will of the humans until the humans cede their will to the demons. Now listen, there's a number of ways to do that people are fairly oblivious to, like tarot cards, Ouija boards, I believe certain movies, drugs and alcohol. There's a whole way of desensitizing, removing your ability to will and to guard your own mind and your own body. There's a whole gamut of ways that we can do that to ourselves. And we start to open doors that should be shut. Be aware of things, looking for things, seeking things, wanting things. And along with it, the enemy can come in. Now, I believe for a Christian, the evil one comes and he touches us not. I do not believe that a Christian can be demon-possessed. I do believe that the demons will wrestle with you, right? Because our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers and the powers of darkness. I believe they will hassle you, right? They're not going to let you go. But here, Jesus says, go, and they go, and the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place. They just jump off. This is pig cliff jumping. They jump off, that's a joke, off the steep place, and nobody, the pigs are dying. That's whatever. And then the steep place into the sea, and they perished in the water. Right? If there is satanic influence that you've permitted into your life, it will work, whether slowly or quickly. The enemy he's been around for a long time. He doesn't mind working slow if he needs to. He'll take the long route if he has to, right? But ultimately, he's going to try to get you to kill yourself, which is the ultimate height of demonic activity, suicide, right? And the reason is if he can get an unbeliever to kill themselves, then they will have committed themselves to eternal destruction apart from God forever and ever. And their hope of salvation will have ended right there. He would love to have it done, right? There's an epidemic, obviously, in our culture, obviously. COVID, the suicide rates went up four times, I think, right? Drug and alcohol use, opiate use, up like exponentially during the shutdown in COVID. obviously, right? The enemy is using whatever challenges and whatever situations he can to ultimately just try to kill people and destroy them, right? Render them inoperative. Take away their chance for salvation. This whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place, perished, died, all in the water. Then those who kept them fled, right? The sheep herders, or the pig herders here, they fled and went away into the city. We're not told how far away they go, but they got to run there and then they'll come back. They went away into the city and told everything, including what had happened to the demon-possessed men. They're like, listen, it was a normal night. We and our pigs were just chilling, right? And then we hear this sound down around the shore after the storm went away, kind of thing. And it was kind of, and then the men came out of the tombs. You know the guys. They came out of the tombs. They were screaming. You should have heard them screaming. I never heard them scream like that. And then it was over. And they were just done. It was quiet. And then the pigs got squirrely. And they just, and then they're like lemmings, right? Running, they go, and we're like trying to get them and holding on to them. They're dragging the sheep herders, the goat, pig, what are they? Pig herders, dragging them. We can't even hold them back. They're like, I never felt a pig so strong. They're going to drag. And then they're like jumping off the cliff. You should come and see what in the world's going on, because we don't know what's going on. They get the whole energy of the whole crowd stirred up. And they come out. It says the whole city. Verse 34, look. And behold, the whole city came out to meet Jesus. Here's another crowd. The whole city came out to meet Jesus. And it says, when they saw him, Mark tells us they also saw the two demon-possessed men, but that the men were sitting there, finally, sitting, clothed, which they couldn't keep clothes on them before, and in their right mind. The men are calm. I wonder if in the group, if the whole city's there, right? You got a little 9-year-old girl in that group who looks up at her mom. What happened to Dad? What happened to Dad? Can I go to him? Every other time it would have been, no, honey, you can't. You can't see your dad. You can't go. He's literally the maniac in the hills that we hear screaming at night. You can't go. And this time, finally, right? Can I go see Dad? And Mom like, I don't know, right? But he looks normal again, kind of thing. Let's go see. But the rest of the crowd, they're put out by other things. They're put out by the distraction to their economy, right? If that pig farm goes down, the whole area's economy goes down. Everybody suffers when a farmer like this suffers in an area like this. His whole market, his whole operation's destroyed. Now he's not going to buy feed from the people that provide the feed. He's not going to need this, and the whole thing is being affected. So when they saw him, they begged him to depart from their region. And remarkably, Jesus leaves. It tells us in chapter 9, verse 1, he got into the boat and crossed over back to Capernaum. The crowds don't seem to get it. There are some people who love crowds. Not just getting them, they like being a part of them. I like going to the largest church in the area because nobody really knows what they're doing in their free time. Right? You go to this church, everybody's in your business. Everybody's in your business. Right? I don't want anybody in my business. I want to be anonymous. I want to sin and get away with it. Kind of thing. Go to church, mark it off my list. I can tell grandma that I did it. But I'll do whatever I want to do. Right? The crowds can provide some measure of safety that will only be proven to be faulty at some point in the future. But if you find that the Lord is taking you through a storm, a natural crisis, or bringing you into a spiritual confrontation, spiritual warfare, if you find that he's doing those two things in your life, what you should do is you just go to him and say, Lord, what are you trying to show me about yourself that I've been missing this entire time? What do you want me to learn about you? I need something from you. Because most of the time when it's a storm, even warfare, I don't like warfare more than anybody else, right? We go through a season and there's dreams and nightmares and crazy stuff. I don't think our warfare has been as bad as some in ministry that have experienced, but I still don't like it. And so you start to get that sense that everything's wonky and there's warfare and all this stuff is kind of, I don't look for that. But Lord, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? When life is too easy, when things are cruising, where do I default? And amazingly, oftentimes, right, the Lord has to get us into these places where we can begin to see him. I'm not sure it would be what he'd prefer. Right? I don't like to see my kids suffer any more than any other parent. I love to see them take on challenges and deal with them like adults. I love that. I just wish they could do that without any difficulties. I wish they could mature without it ever being hard. Just the easy way, right? But I think the Lord knows about all of us. That's not really how we work. We don't just grow because we can. Most of the time we grow because we have to. I think what we'll find, though, is if we surrender to that we will be thankful for what we learn of the Lord in the storms and in the warfare. And in some degree, you probably wish for it. Be glad that it didn't be taken away from you. Because for the way for us to grow, to get to know him, to be with him. It was Spurgeon, Swindoll. I think he quoted it. I'm not sure he wrote it. Swindoll doesn't write anything. He just reads what his writers write. But it's a different point. And that God will not greatly use a man until he has first greatly hurt him. Right? Many times in our lives, the way that we're going to grow, the way that we're going to become the people that God wants us to be, is through some measure of difficulty, through some storm, right? I would encourage you, I don't know where you're at, what kind of storm you're coming into or going out of, right? But I would encourage you learn everything about Jesus in the middle of that storm that you can learn. Because those lessons are precious. Right? Those lessons are lessons nobody can talk you out of. People can give me some intellectual argument about why God does not exist. And I'm like, yeah, but when I was here, he did this, and I've seen him do this, and I know he says this, and this is what he does, and so whatever you say, I don't care, because I know that God's real. And he's actually proven himself to be the realist when I've needed him the most. Cry out to him. Even if it's something like, Lord, don't you care that I'm dying? Right? But at least now you're talking to the right person. Cry out to him. See what he says and what he does. And pay attention. Because he's revealing himself in the middle of it.
We learn God often shapes us most through the storms we never saw coming. You may not know what's ahead, or maybe you're still recovering from what's behind. But wherever you are, don't miss what God's trying to show you in the middle of it. Cry out to him, even if it's raw and messy. Because in the storm, he reveals himself in ways no one can ever talk you out of. All right, thanks for joining us again. This is the Word for the Valley podcast. So long, everyone.